And yeah, it is a Nomad here and a land one. Okay, so I'm going to switch off the fog of war for have a kinda normal view of what is happening here. So, alright, the map seems to be kinda okay. Yeah. Oh well, looking at the left, around blue, you see a lot of gold mines. Literally a ton of them.
Oh yeah, he's got
And
a really nice spot.
yeah, and not really all that much, or rather many of them on the right side, which is kinda curious. But really, it seems like it will be a pretty sweet spot for RoRs if they really stick to there. So far, they are just looking for some hunt. I don't really see all that much of it. A bit to the south from the goats and potentially some boars at the top. Oh, wow. Yeah, if they can manage to find that, that would be pretty sweet for them. Those 3
The problem
boars.
is that they've kind of missed their spots a little bit. Like they're both sort of chopping near that north hunt, whereas one of them's gonna have to move down to that deer patch on the south.
Yeah, right now, Jon Snow at least has found the hunt at the very bottom, as he's moving with all the sheep there and whatnot, so they will be pretty close to each other. But yeah, you are right, they might be actually competing about, or rather for the top hunt, if they are able to discover it. Have they so far, looking at the villager's point of view, who was the closer one? Ah, yeah, he actually knows about it, so he knows about both the boars and the hunt there, so potentially they can go both of them there. And right now, blue is even signaling the boars at the bottom. Okay, so they should be pretty much aware of where they are. And how's it looking for the other team then? Quite
The
decent
other team's
position as
found their
well.
spots really quickly, as far as I can tell. They've both got their lumber camps within really small walking distance to their deer patches.
Yeah, yeah. And it seems like this might be actually a pretty huge advantage for RORs because they are very close to each other and they might be very easy. It might be very easy for them to defend against potential earlier, I don't know, some kind of scout rushing or whatever, or rushing scout raiding normal. But otherwise, yeah, quite a lot of movement all around with the sheep and whatnot, trying to scout what is happening. And the TC placement seemed to be reasonably okay, both for purple and also red. So they are right next to each hunt. That's right next to some kind of hunt. And yep, right now at the top, Jon Snow is right now having sheep right next to a big hunt, and he will be definitely moving there with.
Oh, Jon Snow.
Oh, he's having
Oh,
some idols right now.
yeah, he's having some wood problems. He tried to drop off wood, but he only dropped 270.
Yeah.
He had to go
Okay.
back and do it again, so he's really far behind now.
Yeah, quite a lot. And he's building here. Okay, so he will probably be going for a mill right next to the hunt there, I would be guessing, as it would be quite advantageous rather than luring all of those boars next to the TC. That would be quite time consuming or some kind of village downtown and whatnot. But well, Jon Snow right now saying that he's going for a full plump. Okay, so that will be faster castle age from him pretty soon, but so far, looking at the villages, Dodonpa at 7, Villager at 7, and yeah, Jon Snow 4, Variance Freeze 5. So it's more or less equal, but still, the later,
Well, Jon Snow is going to be at least 2 vills behind the other mine player.
yeah, that's definitely going to count, and yeah, especially when he's fighting against Freeze, who is already up quite nicely, set up in there, having quite a lot of hunt just for himself, the double hunt on the right, together with 4 boars. It should make for some pretty decent boom in the early ages.
Oh, and was immediately housed.
But really, what could be a pretty big advantage is really the gold on the left, because if this happens to go to some later game and RORs are able to somehow capture the middle of the map, as a lot of mines potentially for the taking, but if they can control the middle, PoJs are going to be in a pretty tough situation, as they will be having just 2 mines per each player, which is not really a whole lot. It might be quite a lot of problems for him in the later game. Looking at this stone, it seems like pretty much equal, so either Mayans shouldn't be having any kind of problems with castles, but looking how they're also playing as Chinese, the other players, well, they will be definitely looking to get as much stone as they can, both of them, both teams here.
Honestly, I don't think it's very likely that this game's gonna go to the extreme late game situation when those extra goals are really gonna have a difference.
Yeah, looking at Jon Snow
I
right
think.
now, he's exactly as you have said, two wheels behind Freeze, 2 to 3. So yeah, that's a pretty big difference in the early game, and will be potentially quite a lot of difference into advance into Feudal Age. So I would be maybe interested if they would be switching into some kind of slink or whatever. Do you think that would be a good idea on this map?
Oh, if they can wall in Jon Snow, then he could quite easily go for a sling. Like, because his map isn't too bad to wall off. Like, he could wall through the middle of the deer patch, then up to the top of the map, and then he's pretty easily safe, and he's got the golden stone next to his TC. Like, he could easily sing Villager.
Yeah, it's going to be quite hard in the early game for Villager potentially, because he's literally open and I don't really see a reasonable way how he can wall his main TC. That's literally an open expanse in the middle of the map, so that could be a pretty big problem. Because looking at PoJ's bases, they will be quite a lot easier to wall and defend overall. So if Freeze or Dodonpa go for some early raiding, that could be pretty deadly for RoRs, especially looking how Jon Snow is going to be later in the next stages. So also later to help.
Definitely, definitely.
I'm going to have a look around with point of views, if they're actually aware of where their opponents are. So far for PoJ, they know where green is, but they haven't discovered blue yet. That's potentially a bit of a problem for them. They know where the hunt is or whatnot, so they can raid, but looking at Dodonpa, has he actually scouted blue? No, it seems like that nobody has scouted
Kind
blue.
of. Like, he can see where the deer are, and he can see that boar corpse.
Yeah,
So,
that he
and
can,
he's just
but
found the lumber camp.
yeah.
So he knows he's somewhere in that sort of circle.
Yeah, the sheep camped right next to the lumber camp. That's pretty cool.
I've just noticed that Freeze lost a villager to a boar lure earlier. There's a body just sitting underneath the TC.
Yeah. Oh well, that's unfortunate. Probably couldn't really actually put it inside the TC fast enough. But the amount of sheep that he has, well, that's a lot.
Oh yeah, it's crazy, and like even the Dumpa's got a lot of sheep.
Yeah, they're having a pretty decent amount, but really for Freeze, this is pretty decent. They will be quite safe, potentially, if they go under some kind of attack later on, but I don't really think that's going to be all that needed, because he's having all those boars and the deer on the right, so it seems like that Freeze will be having a pretty decent start. He's even leading on score by 100 almost, about Jon Snow. Still the two villages difference, but that is still going to go with him for the rest of the game.
Freeze is already going under stone, so obviously the mine player is going to go for
Yeah.
castle drop with plumes.
Jorompa going to Feudal as the first player of them all, with Villager going right behind him, so they are pretty much equal in here. Both Jorompa and Villager, and this is definitely going to be decided between Freeze and Jon Snow, it seems like.
Wondering if either of the Chinese players are maybe going to go for more of a monk play, or if they'll just go for the sort of standard knight push.
Yeah, Villager right now asking if Jon Snow is actually walling. Well, he's going to be having a hard time of it, actually, at this stage. But obviously this is a question by Villager, kinda I think meant to say that he isn't actually sure how he should do it with this open expanse in the middle in there.
Jon Snow, I can make a tiny arena. Sure, that'll suit him.
Yeah, that would definitely make him a bit more comfortable on this map. Yeah, Freeze is already halfway into Feudal, whereas Jon Snow is not even clicking in. Just going to switch into him how far he is. Right now he
He
could
has
be
the
clicking.
resources.
He does have the resources, so waiting just for the extra villager. Basically wants to be on the same page as Freeze. Well, he will be having 2 extra villies than him, but the later advance, well, let's see if it's going to actually pay off or not.
I don't think it's likely to. I just the faster uptime, Freeze can just go over to the Dumpler and just double Villager, no problem, and try to wipe him off the map pretty quick.
Well, that's a lot of quite defensive fall actually for Jon Snow. He's walling right next to his TC. I would have maybe expected him to try to catch a bit more of the map, but yeah, to be honest, it's not such a bad decision because obviously he does have just a bit of hunt there that's going to be finished pretty soon, and otherwise it would be kind of nothing to cover. Maybe the hill would be kind of advantageous to actually capture for him, but not much more than that, I guess. So it seems like a pretty decent idea, even though it's going to be limiting for him as far as actually building placement goes. Well, let's see how he actually is able to go out of his shell later in the game then.
I think it's going to be interesting though, because Villager hasn't made any military buildings yet, just gone Market Blacksmith. So I'm not sure if he's just planning on doing a boom or going monks. Defensive monks and boom.
Yeah. Well, right now Red is definitely thinking about some kind of expansive or rather extensive walling, as he's basically trying to protect the whole bottom quarter of the map with his walls in there with the blacksmith and the palisades and whatnot. So yeah, he's definitely thinking about defense and hoping that he can actually raid his opponent right now, dropping a stable. So definitely a bit of a scout raiding going on from him. And maybe a bit of knight, because obviously they are advancing to Castle Age, all three, besides Jon Snow, obviously.
I think also Denump is just trying to secure corners, but if it does get to a later game that they're able to trade
Yeah,
safely.
that's going to be quite decent trade route from the left side, all the way to basically next to Freeze. That could be pretty decent for them. And yeah, exactly as you say, with how Jon Snow is right now walling, it's going to be quite hard for them to potentially stop trade, even on the top side, because yeah, he would have to develop into basically unprotected area, which wouldn't be ideal for him at all.
And Village is immediately going for 2 extra TCs. Whereas the Dump is making knights and sending forward villagers as well.
Yeah, clicking in knights quite nicely, and yeah, he definitely thinks about very early offensive with Monastery right now. So that's going to be quite decent from him, and it seems like that villager is actually doing for exactly, or rather doing exactly the same right now, but the Monastery, and yeah, the town centers are pretty well placed, because he's going to be having a pretty easy spot to defend right next to his main gold. But at the same time, it's just 4 gold mines, so it's not anything big. And I kinda think he's going to need a bit more protection of the gold inside his bases. Otherwise he's going to be very open to raiding, obviously.
I think it's just the Dump is just going to slowly push in with Fangs and Monks, because it's really difficult to raid effectively in my opinion, because all your resources are covered by TCs.
Yeah. So if he's going to... Yeah, right now he has dropped actually Siege Workshop. But it might be a pretty fast attack from him, or attempt, basically before his opponent has any kind of units. But looking at the monastery, he could be just fine defending with monks and some villagers against the siege. That could just be working for him quite fine. Yeah, right now, converting just the first knight, which is definitely putting his opponent into quite a bit of problems so far. But he's probably going to be converting them right back with his red monk right next to his army. But what was also interesting that Purple is already having a castle together with a second DC, so that's kind of combination. You usually see the Mayans just go for either the castle or the boom, so he seems to be combining those two. And I kind of think he can easily afford it, especially against Jon Snow, who is kind of late to advance and only now dropping a castle and still having just one DC so far. So he's not basically mimicking what Freeze is doing.
I think he's just waiting for a little bit more stone before he builds his TC. Because he really needs to get a TC somewhere else so that he has more space to make eco.
Yeah, first
like, he's got no
is up.
farming space in that tiny little arena he's made.
Yeah, okay, Mangonel is up for the red player. Has already taken a pretty good shot at the villager line in there. And yeah, this could be pretty dangerous for blue, because obviously he's very open all around. And some few good shots from Mangonel onto his Echo could be quite dangerous for him, as he will be denied any kind of resources, and he's going for barracks so far, but obviously he needs to, so let's see if he's going to basically develop into, I don't know, spearman or whatever. That would be pretty stupid, I will guess, so let's see. Right now the amount of villagers on the stone basically tells me that he's probably going for a castle for better protection.
Or he might even just go for a tower or something. Like, he just needs something back.
Well, he definitely needs some kind of units. So
yeah,
otherwise...
Spears and Monks isn't going to cut this, because Freeze will just come over with the plumed archers.
Yeah.
And then just pick off Spearmen and the Monks with no difficulty whatsoever.
Well, Jon Snow is doing a pretty good job with the defense at the top of his base. Even though he's on kind of limited space, he's already having a bit more plumed archers than what Freeze was actually raiding with. That's a pretty good job looking at the game so far for him, and it might actually buy him some extra time to maybe get on par with his opponent, but it's really going to be quite hard, especially with Village right now being under pretty heavy attack, with 3 Mangonels and a pretty big army, or rather big. Looking at the stage of the game and his opponent, it's pretty decent, those 4 knights. And with those 4 monks, yeah, that's pretty problematic right now for a villager.
Freeze really needs to get Box and Arrow though. Jon Snow has Box and Arrow already, so you're gonna start losing those fights really quickly.
Well, even though it might seem that actually the Mangonels are not doing any kind of lasting damage, they actually are, because they causing quite a lot of villager downtime for all those repairs. There are like 6 repairing villages which are not obviously gathering at this stage, but Jon Snow is actually switching into bottom, so he will be helping in the defense. And well, it doesn't seem like Purple is actually helping right now. He's having just a lot of idle plumed archers near his base, but he definitely needs to help now, because Jon Snow has just lured some of the knights into the fight here, which is definitely something that Red did not want, as he has lost 3 knights just to that, and well, it doesn't seem like he will be able to convert them back. And yeah, you can see double barracks and quite a lot of spearmen, so that's a bit of a problem right now for Dodonpa.
Oh, he really needs Freeze to come over there and help him out.
Oh,
Maybe some nice Mangonel shots on the pikemen, like, oh, just like that.
Ah, that's going to be 5 Mangonels dead, without all that much damage dealt. That's kind of unfortunate for him, obviously. Quite a lot of resources and quite a lot of shame as well. Because right now this is basically exactly what RoRs needed. They have separated their opponents, basically 2v2 switched into 2 versus 1 times 2. Definitely a pretty great battle for them to take, and well. If they can potentially switch into some Mangonels as well for Village right now, that would be a pretty good idea. He could basically kill even Freeze at this point. Yeah, this is obviously developing into raiding of the red player as well, so he's going to be having some idols. Right now he's having 11 idols, whereas Villager is having 16, as he's been raided by some plumed archers from Freeze as well, at the very top. And well, monks are actually trying to put a stop to that, but not exactly sure that's going to be the correct unit at this stage.
Oh, Freeze can just run in there and kill those monks, no problem if he wanted to.
Looking at the list overall, we have Freeze with 65, Dodonpa 68, whereas Villager is 58 and Jon Snow is 49. So still the economical advantage is definitely on PoJ's side, so I kinda think they could afford to take this a bit slowly. Go for a bit more boom in and then basically advance into Imperial Age and overpower their opponents there. Because with strong Regal, they should be having definitely an upper hand in the prolonged battle in there. And Jon Snow developing at the top right now, trying to secure the hill in there with the castle and building quite a lot of arms in there.
Ooh, 2 castles already, that's gonna
That's pretty
make life
decent
pretty
for him.
difficult for Freeze. Freeze is trying to come forward to the castle. Oh no, that's just a town center to secure those golden stones in the middle.
Yeah, that's quite a lot of gold and stones, so definitely something that he wants to keep. And he's dropping a castle right next to it, so yeah, you were kinda right in the future. So, pretty good guess in there. And well, this is going to be quite decent defensible position for him because it's very close to his opponent and really will be easy for him to mount an assault from there. But he has to be careful so that he doesn't lose units needlessly because right now he's going to be basically defended by Jon Snow. But also Mangona for blue. Can he actually get a good shot in? Just missed. Just missed.
Oh, he's gonna get a little bit pincered in there.
Yeah, right now Jon Snow is going to try and stop him. It seems like that Freeze is paying quite a lot of attention, so he's not gonna be caught off guard with this Mangonel, but still, this is exactly the unit that Villager needs to protect against this kind of raiding, and with the amount of plume touches from green, that's quite a lot of them. Oh, that was a good shot.
Nice angle shot.
And this really puts right now Jon Snow up ahead quite a lot because he hasn't lost any kind of reasonable amount of units, maybe 3 plume touches tops, whereas Purple has actually lost everything pretty much. He's right now with just 4 and at least he's advancing into Imperial Age, but still, that was quite costly for him and it will cost him quite a lot of resources to actually try and get that. What's interesting at the bottom, that the Dompa is actually dropping a castle on his opponent. Blue is already having one for defense on the gold and the stone, but still, this one dropped in there could be quite problematic because the Dompa is also going into Imperial Age, which will mean quite a lot of Chukonus very soon. Yes, already switching into them. And of course, the trebuchets, quite of course.
I think the main thing is that both the PoJ players have got a much higher villager count than RoR players. Like they're about
About
30
20 more.
extra villagers.
That's quite a lot. About a quarter more villages than their opponents. That's really quite a lot of difference. But right now, Jon Snow is actually trying to rectify that through the raiding of those plume touches. Trying to stay on the little hill in there. But he should be finding some other line here. Yeah, the stone village at the bottom would be a pretty good target, but looking how Freeze is actually really paying quite a lot of attention, and he's having quite the correct reactions here. It seems like that Green won't be having any kind of luck, but maybe he could switch into Red actually, because Red isn't walled at all at the bottom, and would be very open for raiding, especially on the stone mine in there. It could be pretty problematic for him in the game there.
Well, you can always take that stone next to the castle and town center he built towards the north.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what he's going to do. Yeah, he's just building a mining camp now.
Yeah, a lot of outposts actually cropping up around the right side of the Blue's base. Red building outposts, Blue is having one as well. Oh, wow.
The main issue at this stage is Jon Snow is not up to him yet. Like, he's still going to be a minute or two away unless he decides to sell and buy a little bit.
Well, he's having 800 food, 700 gold, so he's actually not all that far away. Right now he's dropping in, so he should be advancing about now. So
he's just so far behind.
Yeah, it's like
Japanese
how
players.
long is he actually advancing to Imperial Age? 2-3 minutes or some such? That's quite a lot of difference.
Yeah, it's about like 2 minutes 40, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
No, 3 minutes 20, I think.
Yeah, that's quite a lot of time, and will be quite a lot of opportunity for Freeze to potentially switch into, I don't know, he could be switching into Eagle Warriors. That's usually what Mayans do if they want to spend something, especially against another Mayan. That could be a decent idea. And looking how they will be facing a lot of Chukonus as well, that wouldn't be a half bad idea, I think. Castle nicely dropped. Yet another one from Freeze, just now killing the villager that was trying to build the wall in here. And that might still really allow him to actually make a room inside opponent's base quite easily, if he cannot actually finish the wall at the very top.
We're going to just petard in quite easily.
At the bottom is really developing quite nicely for Red, who is a pretty nice spot of 4 castles right there, with double trebuchets and quite a lot of Chukonus right now coming in. And that's going to be quite difficult for Blue to actually defend against, because he's having just 2 castles right now, having to repair at least one of those. And he's really not up to par, I think, to defend against this kind of onslaught from the Dumpa.
And Jon Snow's just lost all of his plumed archers in the back of Freeze's base.
Oh yeah. He has actually run into some kind of trap, or how has he gotten there? I've actually missed it.
That stone wall wasn't there earlier.
Yeah.
After he ran in, Freeze came back behind him and stonewalled him in.
That's
So
pretty
he's
good
just
job.
stuck running around those farms at the top.
Well, that's pretty good job in there, and yeah, that's basically turning the tables around because Freeze has lost quite a lot of army in the earlier game, but right now it's turning around. But he does have reinforcements. He's having quite a lot of army right now in Blue's base, trying to help him defend against the pretty brutal attack from the red player, who is right now having 5 trebuchets, and that's costing quite a lot of villages to Blue to actually repair that, which is yet again hurting Heseko. And even though he is, oh well, he's actually 50 villages behind the Odompa. Well, that's pretty decent boom from him. And right now even
It's,
those 10 extras are not doing anything. So yep, that's a big problem for him.
the problem is Jon Snow's army can't really help out. Like, with those 4 castles there,
Yeah,
can't push at all.
they're literally
Range
missing
units.
some
Like, you
kind of...
need Elite Eagles to do anything in this.
Yeah, I'm kind of still missing some kind of extra mangonels or onagers right now in the Imperial Age from either of those players, because obviously that could help quite a lot, especially against the huge amount of Red Siege. Right now Red is having... wow, that's a lot of them.
A lot of trebuchets.
That's 9 trebuchets right there. And that's a pretty decent siege. But, well, Blue is actually having a pretty decent number himself. But I don't really think that's going to matter all that much.
Freeze is losing a couple of plumed archers here fighting 1v2 in the middle of Blue's base.
Yeah. Well, village right now saying that it's GG here, and that's pretty much true, I have to say, at the very bottom. As you really cannot defend here. And yep, GGs are right now being called, as they definitely recognize that this is pretty much it. And they won't be able to defend even against the red player here. Not even talking about Freeze, who is slowly but surely coming from the front at the top. Well, that was kind of seemed like pretty much decided at the very early game, with Jon Snow falling behind very early, and it seems like that it basically snowballed into the later game with PoJs booming much more efficiently than their opponents, and that did decide the game, it seems.
Oh, it's definitely the eco advantage. They're just able to produce so much more army and get the imp faster. Like, if Jon Snow had been 2 minutes earlier and in at about the same time as everyone else, I think it might have been a bit of a closer game. But they just got too much of an advantage from all that raiding they had.
Yeah. And looking right now at the achievements, well, they don't pass the MVP, but obviously with that kind of boom, that usually happens for you. But interestingly enough, Jon Snow is actually able to get back into the game quite nicely. He has even beaten Freeze in the total score. So that's not half bad in there. But yeah, the Don't Pass Echo, that was super strong. 4,000 more food than the second best, that was Freeze. That's really quite a lot of extra resources above their opponents. Okay,
But
then
when you
GG.
have more than 50 extra villages, you would hope they have a lot of extra resources.
Yeah. It was kind of a jump in the later game, I would say, because we were following them quite closely. And then, like 5 minutes before the end, he actually jumped so much ahead in the villager count. I was kind of curious. But he definitely did push for the economy from the very start, so yeah, it did really pay off quite nicely. Okay, GG then.